You're listening to Arsenal Pass, a flesh and blood podcast for players by players. And all about strategy, leveling up, and the latest news in the world of Wraith. Welcome to Arsenal Pass.
Brendan, Oldhim or gone him?
Well,
yep.
More like Bravo still sucks. Stop coping. I've seen a lot of Bravo copium on Twitter. People thinking that Bravo's going to be the new deck in town. I don't think so. I do think Jeremiah stocks go up though, and we had a amazing deck guide by ENTCG recently on the Arsenal Pass YouTube channel, as well as I think the most comprehensive, well-written deck guide we've ever had. Would you agree, Hayden?
Oh, easily. Wow, I can't believe you went straight for the Bravo players, though. Not even a minute into the podcast. Those poor Bravo players.
What are your thoughts? I'm actually keen to get your thoughts if you think that, off the back of Oldhim leaving, a sort of derivative hero in the form of Bravo that has access to a lot of the same cards is going to be a viable and playable deck.
Yeah, I mean, I think it already is to a degree. It's in that kind of maybe tier 3 range at the moment in this current metagame, but yeah, we're gonna see. Look, the meta's going to shift massively. I mean, in this pod, we're going to talk mostly about the breakdown of Antwerp, Road to Nationals data so far, the current meta as we head through this kind of midway point of the Road to Nationals season. We've got a couple of Battle Hardens, calling Singapore, last few weeks of Road to Nationals, and then we are concluding the Outsiders season and moving very fast towards Dusk Till Dawn, of course. But Oldhim won't be joining us in Dusk Till Dawn. We know that already with Pablo's win securing that. It's interesting. Living Legend. I mean, we're now going to be at 4 heroes for Living Legend.
Mm-hmm.
I heard that, if you remember James White saying, they're looking for 4 heroes to start the Living Legend format. This gives us our 4th hero. In terms of what that means for Classic Constructed, well, I mean, we can chat about that. But I think, Oldhim has been kind of this. Oldhim is one of the heroes that had the biggest impact on the format, but just got the Living Legend points the slowest, right? Do you remember we kept saying on multiple pods, wow, Oldhim's like impacting this format, yet wasn't winning events. Oldhim's doing this, but wasn't winning events. And Prism kind of felt that way until we got to that Road to National season. And it's been similar here. We get to this Outsiders season, and Oldhim has been quite dominant through the first couple of weeks of Road to Nationals, plus, of course, Michael Fing's Pro Tour win and this calling win as well.
Yeah, I just think a lot of decks, there isn't really something to fill the shoes of Oldhim. I think as we've sort of progressed in Flesh and Blood, the attacking and the value you can get out of attacking rather than defending has just been greater. But Oldhim sort of broke that paradigm with the Crown of Seeds and with the defensive tools that were a part of that deck. And it sort of gave it the ability to play a value game plan while on attack and on defense, where I think a lot of other decks were mostly just focusing on the offense. Yeah, Oldhim leaving the format, I think, is one of the most exciting things to happen to Flesh and Blood. I don't know if it's going to be a good thing. The big question is whether Oldhim being in the format and controlling it however it did was actually a positive or a negative. I think a lot of people will reflect on it immediately as a negative, but you can never really see those ramifications early. We saw that with Prism. I thought when Prism left, the format would suck, and the format got so much better, I feel like, when Prism left, actually. Hayden, I do want to ask you, though, in regards to Living Legend format, do you think Living Legend format would be better if it was only the heroes that were Living Legend, or if it was an open format, so you could play any hero?
I mean, there's just not enough here. Like, the game isn't old enough at this point to have that, I think. I think just keep it to the Living Legend heroes, and honestly, we even 4 heroes, that's such a small, that's basically Welcome to Wraith, right? Obviously the card pool's bigger, but the power level of these heroes, is it actually going to be that enjoyable a format? I don't know. Interesting. I know some people have already played some games, so but I would prefer it to stay probably as a true Living Legend format if that's the way it goes. We'll see. I mean, at the moment, focus is on Class Constructed, Limited. We've got Blitz, of course, as well. This will be a 4th format, plus things like UPF. One thing I want to say about Oldhim is the blues have really defined what Oldhim has done, and that's why Bravo stands a chance to be impactful in the in the impending formats, because of the power of these blues. These cards like Thunderquake, like Macho Grande, like Terra Sunder. It's similar to Icelander. These heroes that have gained this power through consistency of how good their blues are, plus of course Crown of Seeds and Rampart, etc. The other thing that I laughed a lot at on Twitter over the week was people coming out, in the lead up to this season, so the past sort of year to 2 years almost since Oldhim has been around, just the hate for Oldhim and Ice in this format, it ruins the game, this and this. There's a vocal, albeit minority, saying this, and then all of a sudden the narrative just switches as soon as Oldhim hits Living Legend. It's so bad for the format. Oldhim was such a good regulator for the format and all this.
Yes.
It's just
Starvo
it makes me
2.0,
laugh.
basically. The same thing happened with Starvo. I mean, I think that it wasn't a vocal minority that claimed about Starvo. I think it was a vocal majority, but Starvo left and there was a vocal minority who was like, oh yeah, we missed Starvo. Hayden, speaking of Twitter, you reminded me of something, and I just got to ask you, do you think that Flesh and Blood is a loot box game?
Oh, of course. Is there a debate? I mean, honestly, I'm not even going to mention that person's name because I have zero time for that individual. Being someone who's been around Magic for a long time, that individual was always someone that... Anyway, it's not even worth talking about.
I just want to bring it up because it's probably one of the most viral things that's ever happened in Flesh and Blood. It was like absolutely popped off. Like Hayden said, if you're not aware of this person, this is par for the course to say the least. But Flesh and Blood, in our opinion, not a loot box game. Very much, probably has one of the best organized play programs of any game that exists right now, and thus why we do what we do. But just wanted to poke the fire a little bit. Yeah,
clearly stoke the flames. Look, I mean, I do have some issues with some of the rarity system in Flesh. Yeah, like if you want to get out there and you want to get in the game right now and secure yourself a tunic, a crown of providence, some Command and Conquer, some Easter eggs, that sucks, and that is an issue. I think that LSS need to address in some way, but also they need to respect the collectors and the players, with their cards. So it's a tough one. That is the biggest issue from a collectability and playability standpoint facing the studio right now. I have confidence that they've got ways to address that. I think we're going to see some interesting things with Dust or Dawn. I wouldn't be surprised to see some of the Tunic, for instance, get a reprint. I think they're going to have to continually do this. Like, I saw some things, people talking about history packs and the kind of idea of how that brings cards into the market. It probably hasn't had... It's, again, been a bit more of a, hey, here's a origin product and here's a language piece and here's some introduction and here's some big about collectability, obviously. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that's quite the answer, but we'll see as we go through. Yeah.
All right. Well, in better news, let's talk about your week in Flesh and Blood, because rattled off some W's over there, didn't you?
I had a good weekend. Yeah, I mean, I was absolutely... Is fizzing the right word? I'm going to use fizzing. After watching Pro Tour Baltimore, a couple of weeks ago, seeing Brendan Patrick on the desk in the booth, casting games, watching, Michael Fink take down Baltimore, I just wanted to play Flesh and Blood. I was sad to be missing Baltimore. So Road to Nationals rolls around. First weekend, or the kind of 0.5 weekend, was for Europe and parts of Asia. No Road to Nationals here. This weekend, got to play 2 Classic Constructor Road to Nationals. Had a great time. Went to the finals of both. Played Oldhim. I think, I've never been an Oldhim player, really. I took the opportunity to get some time with Oldhim before he hits Living Legend. And yeah, picked up some nice prizes over the weekend. And secured my Nationals invite. So now all eyes towards Singapore for me. Bit of testing and working out what I'm going to play and what my deck's going to look like.
Yeah, I think that the Oldhim list that you guys are on now is a lot more fun for your type of playstyle than some of the ones that we had sort of waffled with in the past, some of the more defensive ones. So I could see why you're enjoying it now. For me, no Road to Nationals. The closest one was about 5 hours away, which is all good. But this upcoming weekend, I'm going to be in Pittsburgh casting the Realm Games Road to Nationals, and yeah, I'm really excited for that. Realm Games also, they just announced, I don't know if you've heard, but they announced that in 2024, they're doing a circuit with top of the 50K tournament, which is fucking crazy. Like, grassroots tournament is putting up 50K in the United States. It's absolutely wild. Those guys, they've been sort of setting the scene for a long time now, and I'm happy that it paid off, because I went to some of the first few of those Realm Game events where, maybe the turnout wasn't quite there, definitely wasn't profitable, even close to break even, and it makes me very happy that we've maybe come to the other side of that cycle where this is starting to become a more sustainable practice for them, because I think this is really what will make the Flesh and Blood competitive scene level up. It's not more maybe one more Pro Tour from LSS. It's these grassroots tournaments getting involved and giving us a bunch more events to sort of use as a competitive outlet.
Yeah, I think a lot of different regions in the world and communities can take a cue from this. We've seen it with is it AGE Age in the West Coast as well, with what they're doing in California. I think that's another great sort of look into that as well. I'd love to. I mean, I've heard bits and pieces about what sort of countries in Europe have been doing. I know it's a little bit tougher because of population size and distribution, but Asia, I know places like Hong Kong and Singapore have been trying to sort of run these community series, and I think it is a great way to. I remember playing one in Australia that was done by a community member, Noah. It was sort of around the COVID time when Australia couldn't really we couldn't travel, but we could have events again, and to bring sort of some of the best players and even your city or region or whatever it is, it just creates this competitive drive. I think LSS can supplement that a little bit. Obviously Battle Hardens is a way they're doing that. I think additional callings would be the way they really kind of drive that kind of that spirit and that atmosphere. And obviously it means that there's nothing like a calling or a big event when you're in that hall, right? Whether you're there to play the main event or you're there to play side events. And so I think that's obviously a great way to drive both. But sans that, things like what Realm Games are doing with us, I think are ways to drive it. So yeah, I mean, you're off there, and then I think there's one more weekend of Road to Nationals. So are you playing a Road to Nationals for the last weekend? I know we just got the announcement of the calling and US Nationals, which is very exciting.
Well, a funny story, I actually tweeted about it, complaining about it, and they literally posted it 3 hours after. I was like, what the hell is going on? And someone was like replying to my tweet a few hours later and like just with the link. I'll complain earlier next time, I promise. Am I playing Road to Nationals? I believe that's the weekend, the doubleheader of Oklahoma. And yeah, I'll definitely be playing those because I also need to get an invite.
And you need to take down some certain Wolfpack members.
Yeah, imagine associating yourself with that K9 pack. Yeah. So I think I'll be playing, but we can just skip to this because I know it's going to be a question. I think I'll be playing US Nationals because I haven't heard about attending it in a different capacity. And I'm excited, Hayden. I do feel really bad for all those people that, they've gotten a few wins in since my hiatus. I'll say that.
Yeah, it's been a couple of years since a Road to Nationals win for Bryn Patrick, but he will be there.
It's true.
Well, our Nationals are on the same weekend, so I'm sure we'll, end up working and testing together for that. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
Should we hit some news?
Let's do it.
So I guess best place to start would be, let's shout out Antwerp. Antwerp over the weekend, I tuned in to watch some coverage from the event. Pablo Pintor, what a machine.
Pretty good,
this guy is just, and he, no one's like, oh, Pablo is this player. Pablo is like adaptable. He played Oldhim this time around. He's been known for his more aggressive style of play. I think even I don't quote me on this, on the team calling, I want to say he played Oldhim there or Kano. Like he didn't play a deck that people would maybe necessarily think he would. At this point, multiple calling top 8s, multiple calling wins, a Pro Tour win, 2 Pro Tour top 8s. It's just, because he also topped the New Jersey calling as well. So I think that's 3 or 4 calling top 8s for him as well. So, just firmly cementing himself in the realms of top 3 players in the world right now. And Hamilton's got some challenger for, honestly, it doesn't matter. These guys are all amazing, amazing players, and it doesn't matter. But it is a fun to sort of, put them out there and debate and sort of say, who is the best, regardless of whether there's a right or wrong answer. But yeah, watching the coverage, Pablo played very cleanly. It was awesome to watch. Big shout out to friend of the show and someone who worked with our group for Worlds, Gabe Scher, making his first, premier event top 8 in the calling. I think he made it way to the semi-finals. Unfortunately, losing to Uzuri. Uzuri went to the final. That's also another piece of exciting news that we'll, I'm sure, chat about. But yeah, I wanted to give a shout out to Gabe because Gabe is a very nice individual and a good player.
I spoke to the Sunflower Samurai guys before Worlds, or at least one of them who spoke on behalf of the group. And they mentioned that Pablo and a lot of the people in that playtest group actually don't play very much. So they have a very relaxed approach to card games. He's like, yeah, they really don't play as well. Because I remember asking them, I was like, what is your testing schedule? What does it look like? And like, yeah, people, if they want to play games in Discord, then they're good. And he's like, just casually one of the best players in the world. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah, Pablo is a very approachable, likable dude and seems pretty chill. So I'm not that surprised.
Yeah.
I want to give a shout out to LSS. Brendan, I don't know if you saw this, but I had an article go up on fabtcg.com last week about playing in the top cup, playing in the top 8 events, dealing with pressure, sort of some tips and tricks on how to, maybe it's going to be your first Road to National season, make your first top 8, what to expect and how to navigate it. So just want to say a big thanks to LSS and fabtcg.com for giving me the chance to write that article. It is up there now. You can check that out, and I hope it's helpful for this Road to National season.
How'd you like revisiting writing content? It's been a while, eh? You used to be a little CFB writer. That's how I met Hayden Dale, by the way. He gave me an in because I actually wrote for CFB at one point too. You actually gave me the in to sort of get that contract, I guess. But yeah, it's been a long time for you. How did you enjoy it?
I think it's honestly been well over 18 months since I wrote an article, since I did a written piece of content, and I enjoyed it. I mean, I really like writing. Having done a thesis, well, some years ago now. I was going to say a few years ago. It's a bit more than that now. I do miss it. I do miss writing. I do miss kind of that style of writing as well, informative writing. But you know what? It is a bit time consuming. It is harder to get your point across. I do prefer the medium that we have with the podcast and the Arsenal Pass channel. But I'm really thankful to LSS for allowing me to do that and put that kind of info out there. And I had fun writing it. I don't think I'm going to return to written content anytime soon. No.
It's a lot of juice you're trying to squeeze out. I don't know if it's worth it. It's a lot. I think that it can be quite cathartic in the end. It can be very rewarding if it's well received. But in terms of written content, at least this is kind of how it was in CFB. Sometimes it's well received. Sometimes it kind of just never gets seen, and you're like, oh shit. Yeah, but it does exist there forever. That's what's nice. I know going to look back at like some of the old Magic articles can be really cool, right? Like looking at those like legendary, like who's the beatdown articles, things like that.
Yeah, I have a couple that I wrote for CFB that I still send to people that I think are, really relevant. I wrote a big article on like the use of equipment, which I think still stands the test of time. And I think if people want to know about how to use their equipment, I mean, we also did a podcast on it, I think, around sort of 50 episodes ago, but things like that. So no, it's interesting. I think it's harder I can just ramble and be less articulate here, and that seems more fun. So
yeah, I have an article about how to play Kano, and this was pre-Wildfire. This is like Arcane Rising, Crucible 4 Kano.
Blitz.
Yeah, Blitz Kano. Oof, the old days.
Elsewhere in the news, Road to Nationals kicked off this past weekend. We'll be touching on, the full, I guess, kickoff of Road to Nationals with what data we do have. We talked about Antwerp already. Living Legend for Oldhim, of course. US Nationals announced. We did just kind of allude to that before. Details for that. It is in Vegas, Brendan, which I know not that much of a surprise.
Yeah, it's West Coast, which is nice. I think a lot of the events have been East Coast, which it's fine, right? You either go West Coast or East Coast, and you just pick one. But I know a lot of the people on the West Coast were kind of being like, "Can we please have another event?" So we finally have it. I really wish that they. I'm biased. I live in Texas. I wish that they would go central because I have to fly to each coast every single time. And nowadays, dude, I feel like every time I buy a freaking plane ticket, and if I even go 20 minutes somewhere, it's $500. It's ridiculous. Yeah. I do hope that they eventually go back to Dallas because Dallas is such a big hub and it'll be in between everybody. But Vegas it's okay. I'm not a huge fan of Vegas. I think you're either a fan of Vegas or you're not. For me, it's just very, very medium. I'd rather not be in Vegas, but it's super convenient to fly to, and the convention center is convenient with the hotels and stuff like that. So, all good with me. I'd rather it be there than, in some obscure place on the East Coast, like Baltimore.
Yeah. Sorry. Is Vegas the West Coast? I guess, I guess it's closer to the West Coast. You know what? I'm also not a big fan of Vegas. It's funny. I was chatting to the Tall Timmy. Yeah. I'm sure people are very familiar with Tall Timmy, local to me here in Sydney. And we'd heard a rumor that Vegas was going to be the location, and we were both looking at, well, mostly him was looking at flights, and it's just ridiculous at this point in time. I'm
2K,
I'm
right?
getting really, minimum, more like 3K from Australia. I'm starting to get a little bit worried about the fact we've heard nothing about Worlds. I mean, we've heard, hey, there's an announcement coming. Wait, there's an announcement coming on this date. There's an announcement of the announcement. I'm getting a little bit worried about Worlds and, just cost of travel for people, including myself. It's definitely a personal concern as well. So I really hope we hear something soon. But anyway, I digress. US Nationals, August 25th to 27th, 2023 in Las Vegas at the Westgate Las Vegas Resort. Best of luck to all those players trying to qualify for the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, I actually didn't dig into that. It's literally at the Westgate. It's not the convention center that's right next to the Westgate.
Great question.
Yeah,
I mean, it says Westgate here.
Yeah, you usually, so when they do the convention center in Vegas, you basically, if you're going to book a hotel, you book Westgate because there's a little, hop, skip, and a jump on the train and you're right there. But in the actual Westgate would be pretty funny.
Yeah, I mean, it says the Westgate Las Vegas Resort has a TCG history that runs deep, and we could not be more excited to be hosting the largest national championship of 2023 and calling it this iconic venue. Wow. So maybe it is. I don't know.
I've heard some people are banned from the Westgate. A little too rambunctious on the Vegas weekend.
Elsewhere, I mean, there's a bit of news this week, Brendan. Dust of Dawn exclusives update. I don't know if you saw this, but at Baltimore, it was revealed that there'll be these 10 copies of Chain and Prism hand-drawn by the artists in these packs released as collectibles for Belgian print run only, so available to Europe and North America, basically. LSS have gone back on that, maybe made some changes, heard the response from players, especially in Asia, in the APAC region, who felt maybe that was a bit unfair, considering their loyalty to the game and their want for the collectability and access to potentially opening one of these amazing cards. And now there will be some of these limited prints in the Japanese run. I mean, look, I'm pretty sure on this podcast we've dunked on Wizards for some of their distribution of very exclusive.
It's fine. We can dunk on LSS for this. Like it's cheap. Like I like that it's hand drawn. That's cool. From Frederico, but yeah, hopefully this is more of like a very exclusive thing where you do have these hand drawn pieces. If we go to like full on serialized cards and maybe separate types of booster boxes, etc., I would support it. I would support it if they put the money back into the game. But if it doesn't go back into the game, I'll dunk on them all day. I'll dunk on them all day.
No, this is a good way to do it, honestly. Like, it's take issue with like collector boosters and those things that other games do. I think, you know what, put this really exclusive, really sort of amazing, really hand touch of what the game is about into the packs and leave it there. And it's nice that they've decided to try and distribute to this worldwide, not just a certain region.
In general, I think across the board with things that are purely cosmetic in games, if they cost more or they're in some sort of separate booster box or they're secret, I'm okay with it. Like, go for it, make money. It's cosmetic. It doesn't affect the game. Yeah. So yeah, whatever.
Cool. Brendan, from your side, I think a couple of videos have gone up on Arsenal Pass YouTube channel.
Yep, 2 deck tacks. One is a Lexi deck tack with top 8 Pro Tour competitor Brody Spurlock, Flesh and Blood prodigy. So check that out. Also deck tack, deck guide on the Patreon. In addition, we have Pro Tour top 9 competitor Ian TCG. Yeah, unfortunately bubbled out at 9th there. Does give us a big Dromai deck tech, and if you saw Ian's match at the Pro Tour, it was absolute masterclass. He's a fantastic Dromai player, and like we talked about, probably one of the most well-written, comprehensive, and just beautifully laid out. The aesthetics of that document were amazing. Deck tech and deck guide we've ever had, so check that out on the Arsenal Pass Patreon if you're looking for extra tips for Big Dromai.
Yeah, and if you don't know who Ian is, Ian has had a pretty stellar sort of record already in this game. He top 8'd Pro Tour Lille. He's top 16'd every Pro Tour, including this one obviously at 9th. A couple of calling top 8s as well. Just amazing run and one of the most consistent players on the Pro Tour. Now just wants to get his W, which I'm sure will come very soon.
Yep. And I did on a previous podcast incorrectly say that I thought he lived in Amsterdam. He does live in The Hague. So my bad.
Oh, there you go.
My bad. Anyway, speaking of The Hague, let's throw some shrimpies on that Barbie, Hayden. We got a command and cookout for this week from Emperor. Oof, almost got me with that one. Oh, Tides. You can imagine how I almost read that. All right. Hayden, why don't you read this out while I recover?
Sure. So if you want to get your Command and Cookout questions, and please do so. We've got some space for some questions coming up. You can drop them in the YouTube comments below. Let us know it's a Command and Cookout question. You can, if you're an Arsenal Pass Patreon, like the Emperors, you can drop them in to the Discord channel in our Command and Cookout channel. You can email them through to us at arsenalpassfab@gmail.com. And this question is, how do you guys feel about 90-day XP being the only qualifier outside of Road to Nationals for this national season? Do you like 90-day XP in general? I find the rolling 90-day XP metric pretty useless, as events from the past are constantly dropping off XP decay is what's been discussed there. So you lose an unknown amount of points unless you have a system you've personally put together to track this. Not to mention, you don't know how much other people will be losing that affects their ranks as well. There's also no tracking shown on, so you can't see how it adjusted over time unless you are keeping detailed notes yourself. If they insist on using this 90-day metric, it'd be much more useful to display the 90 days that matter on your profile page. That way you can log in and only see the amount you've accumulated for the specific time frame season and don't have to worry about any unexpected setbacks you'd only ever be counting up.
Yes, I think that would rely on the website being coded better than it is in terms of like actual updating. So maybe that will happen in the future. Let's answer the core question. Do you like 90-day XP as being the sole qualifier for nationals? I'll say no. I'll say no. And people will push back really hard because they're like, that's how people support their local game store, and this is what fuels the game. You know what? You can have that one. I agree. That's totally fine. But from the competitive side of things, the idea that the most efficient way to qualify for one of these things, at least consistently, because winning Road to Nationals, and I think this is one of the most dog water takes possible in Flesh and Blood, is like, if you're a good player, you're just guaranteed to win one. It's not true. You're favored to win one, but maybe you can't travel to all of them. Maybe you can only go to one. Maybe you can't get in. Like, it's just not a good argument. And then you could just get you just get a little bit unlucky, I guess. So I don't like that this is the only way to qualify. It feels super weird, especially when the national champion does get an immediate invite to sort of defend the title. And ELO, I think that ELO would be fine. I don't know where you would go on ELO, top 10, top X, I don't know. But yeah, solely 90-day XP. It's just, for some reason, it just feels kind of meh to me. It doesn't feel great. What about you, Hayden?
I got a lot to say on this topic because I thought about it a lot over the weekend, because I played a Road to Nationals on Saturday. As I said, booked my ticket on Saturday. And then I thought, I could stop playing these. And is that better for other players? But also, I really want to be playing Flesh and Blood. And I don't think I should feel bad if I bought my entry ticket and I want to play these events. These are events in my city and opportunities to play some of the best players in my area and get the reps in, etc. Play the game I love. I want to be playing. And I think, maybe that there's some disincentivization there. But anyway, I want to talk about some of the, first of all, the positives of the system, right? The positives of exactly what you just said. It drives play to the local stores. It means that Road to Nationals, fill up or get a lot of players in there through the door to play these events and try and, get their invite. If not, they've got obviously double the XP you get from an armory win, so you get to rack up that XP. So it works well. It means that armories are full. I mean, in the lead up to Road to Nationals, armories are at their peak, right? Like, everyone is out there grinding that XP, right? So it is really great for the stores. It's great for the game and for these armory scenes as well. The other thing as well, I think that it means that the Road to Nationals system, the way it works is that the invites kind of effectively drop down, because if multiple people are top fouring, then that just means more room for XP invites, right? Because events are, well, at least in most countries, events are capped at a certain number. I think in the US it works a bit differently, right? Because the nationals is huge, but you've got some effective drop down. So those are all positives. I guess the negatives on that side is, like you said, the other positive as well is that it means that the top players in your area and your region are playing the events, which is a great way to test your mettle and get great games in. I think that's good for a community, good for players developing. You get to play the best because they have to go and play to punch their invite as well. I guess the negative is that you've got some of the best players in the world who might not even qualify. Yes, the argument is they could use a PTI, understand that, but when you can kind of be on the gravy train, so to speak, through ELO and get your invites to Pro Tours and Worlds by continually putting up results. Someone like Ian, like you did a deck tick with, who's just consistently in that top 16, consistently there or thereabouts, these big events, and maybe Ian can't make it to a Road to Nationals for whatever reason. Maybe, XP it's low XP for these big events. It's not 6 points per win like it is for a Road to Nationals or a skirmish season event. So there is some negatives there, and I think my personal take is I would like to see, maybe top 5 limited and constructed ELO of the country get an invite, for instance. Just open it up to these players who are turning themselves into quote unquote professional players, but maybe, they come off the back of a Pro Tour straight into a Road to National season. Give them some bit of downtime potentially and give them an opportunity. Why
would you want to have a national championship tournament and not 100% at least invite the top 5 players in that nation? I don't think that is a good aspect of this. And you're right. You can go out, you can go play these Road to National, you can get your invite, or you can go on 90 to XP, and that's fine. Like, but I also agree with you that if there's a Nationals tournament, I don't want there to be sort of any way of prohibiting some of those players that are already working in other events, already working on Pro Tours, been successful in Pro Tours, Worlds, and for them to just not get invited. Just feels unfortunate to me. That's what I don't like about it. 90-day XP overall.
It's not really going to happen, though.
Yeah.
It's not really going to happen, though, is it? Like, that is the good thing. Is we can say all this. It's not really going to happen. The circumstances where people can't really play Road to Nationals is going to be few and far between. There's a lot of Road to Nationals, a lot of chances to qualify, plus these players can still be playing and qualifying XP. Like, we are saying this, and we are saying these things just as a sort of answer to this question and discussing. Mm-hmm. But the likelihood of these things happening, I think, is quite low. But once it does happen and we hear a case of it, that's a feels bad. Like, imagine if a national champion doesn't qualify to play, and that is I do agree with you that the national champion should be at the national championship to defend their title.
Yeah. And then just to extrapolate on top of that, I've had my own issues with 90-day XP, mostly because like I'm pretty sure online events still happen. They're happening like 2-3 months ago. I know that.
I have not heard about this.
Yeah.
I have tried to corroborate this, Brendan and Patrick, but I have not been able to. So if anyone in the comments wants to corroborate.
Yeah. I was on the Combat Chain podcast, and they were talking to me about how they're juicing some online events for 90-day XP. I also think that 90-day XP, at least in the past, did lead to some sort of unfortunate play experiences where people would be asking for people to concede to them because they were just on the cusp. I know locally, in terms of how the Pro Tour invites work, it does piss off some of my locals a lot. And this is like a super niche, like corner case, but it's prevalent because Brody Spurlocks wins all of our events. So people in my locals are like collectively so angry about this because someone always feels like they deserved an invite, which I think is a total fallacy. And they didn't get it because Brody won and he already had an invite. I just know that that's the way the invites go out right now. It's like it feels bad for some people. I don't think there's validity to it, but I just want to give that take because I hear it every single time I hang out with my locals. I really do. I heard in the freaking airport. Dude, I heard in the airport as I was traveling to the Pro Tour, I ran into some locals and they were talking to me how pissed off they were about Brody not conceding to them.
At least Road to Nationals is top 4. Look, I played a local player in top 8 on Sunday who had like the best attitude about our match. You know, he wasn't worried about the top 4. He was like, I'm here to play. I'm playing a lot of events. I'll qualify in XP if I have to. I'm going to try and win one of these. I was like, great attitude. I love that. I want to say one issue. We said top 5 elo. That was my thing, and you kind of agree with me. I was just play devil's advocate to myself. The elo system is a little bit shaky, right? Like you go to a Pro Tour, you could have been 180th in the world, and all of a sudden you're top 5, or vice versa. You lose 2 more matches, and you've gone from top 10 to around big the middle swings, of the pack. Yeah. So yeah, it's a really big swing. So maybe it's not the best system. Look, I think overall I don't have that many problems with it. I just wanted to kind of show both sides of the argument here as we talk through it. One thing I will say is I think Emperor is right. Like a 90-day leaderboard for the lead up to the cutoff point would be super beneficial for players, right? Because everyone's running these friggin' trackers. They're having to do like mental gymnastics. Oh, the skirmish season is their decay from the first week, but not the second week of the skirmish. Like all this stuff, trying to work out where the cutoff point is. just do a Road to Nationals leaderboard from the cutoff date 90 days backwards.
Yeah, bro. If they did a Road to Nationals leaderboard, that'd be so funny because that would inspire competition outside of the actual point of it, which would be getting your 90-day XP invite. I'm sure people would go, would go for top XP because top XP is, it's correlated to events, but it's also correlated to winning. I think it's a good idea.
Let us say, yeah, if Alex is do it, we'll talk about it. We'll shout out the people at the top of their leaderboards then.
Yeah, that would be fun. That would really make people grind. That'd be fun.
Yeah, it would.
Anyway.
All right. Should we move on to the main topic of the pod?
Mm-hmm.
I'm calling, I called the title of this pod, I'm sure we'll change it before it releases, but I was calling this Antwerp, Road to Nationals, and Oldhim, as my little intro said. Brendan didn't approve. That's fine. Whatever. Didn't even get a chuckle. No, I'm kidding. But we are recapping some of the first weeks of Road to Nationals. We're going to discuss the calling Antwerp, Oldhim's Living Legend, of course, and just our thoughts on this Road to Nationals meta so far. So Road to Nationals results. I mean, in typical fashion, Brendan, I am almost certain as soon as we finish recording this pod, I'm going to refresh the homepage, that week 2 Road to Nationals data will be up on the Fab TCG website. It's a rite of passage for us at this point in time that whenever we record, anything that we're waiting on will come out immediately after we stop recording. So at this point, we have week 1 of Road to Nationals data, which is this is the soft launch week. This is the Europe and parts of APAC. So, I mean, did just want to talk about some of kind of what LSS had put up. I mean, they didn't really put up like data. They just kind of talked about they put up a meta analysis article actually, which is quite interesting. But again, just solidifies that Lexi, Oldhim, and Dromai were really big favorites at these events. I really was hoping we'd see things like conversion data. You know, we love talking about Road to Nationals conversion data, especially when it relates to illusionists.
Yes.
You know, there's also, I guess in this article, they talk about cards like heroes like Azuri, Katsu, and Phi, and kind of their place in the meta, which seems to be growing in that space. So first through 2 weeks of Road to Nationals, Azuri, Katsu, and Phi have seen some success. Akadachi Phi took down a week 1 Road to Nationals. People are picking up these decks as a potential way to, you know, have a good spread into the meta, but, you know, have a plan. These players all seem to have plans into Lexi and Oldhim, particularly Oldhims that are maybe playing a bit more defensively. Without ice, it is a lot harder to disrupt decks like Katsu and Phi in particular, and I think people started to feel that. And then it looked like Dorinthia and Kano had a little bit of success. I know Kano won a Road to Nationals in that first week as well, which you'd be very excited about, Brendan.
A lot of Kanos in Antwerp as well, which we'll talk about later. I won't get ahead of myself. I think that the best way to analyze the early Road to Nationals data and experience is just to go anecdotally based off your experience, because you did win some Road to Nationals. So obviously you took Oldhim. In retrospect, after winning those events, do you think Oldhim is just the objective best deck in the format? And where do you feel like it's positioned relative to the rest of the meta? Whether it's good matchups, whether it's bad matchups, what could change in the meta to make Oldhim potentially not be the best deck, if it is, in your opinion?
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify, I didn't win both Road to Nationals, but I went to the finals of both. We spoke in the lead up to Pro Tour about whether or not Oldhim would be the most played deck at the event. I think I stood on a hill and said it's the defining deck of this format, and I think it is the best deck. I just think it is the best hero, and the reason for that is diversity and what it can do. It can, you know, you could still go back to these ice builds of Oldhim. You can adapt. You can be playing these more. We saw the fatigue version really sort of come through at certain points with like what's the new card called that destroys a permanent? Forgetting the name. But also with like the life gain sort of pieces to the deck as well. And then we've gone back to what we saw sort of win with Michael, which is this, you know, it has disruptive elements for Lexi. He played a bit of ice, but it kind of also has this hybrid approach with just some good attacks and good defensive cards. So there is like Oldhim can be built in so many ways, and I think that's why it's been so strong and why we're going to see it continue to be strong until at Living Legends in, you know, what, just over a month.
Yeah. So my follow-up is, what could change that? What decks could show up? How could people adjust in order for that to maybe no longer be the truth?
Yeah, I guess from my experience in Road to Nationals so far, people haven't really shown up with those decks. People have been playing what they've seen, you know, what's been out there. So Lexi been by far the most played deck at the Road to Nationals I've seen and been at. And then Dromai and Oldhim showing up in big numbers. In terms of some of the things that could show up, I mean, we started to see Phi show up. And the reason I think Phi is particularly relevant into this meta is the styles of Oldhim maybe can't cope with Phi. That was definitely my experience. My two losses, my one loss on Sunday was to a Phi, and the same on Saturday as well. Like it is a tough matchup for these styles of Oldhim deck that people are playing. I mean, I think you can adapt and you can go back. You know, people aren't playing Stalagmite as much. People, you know, we saw Pablo's list. He was like, I think he would have been super soft to a Phi, to be honest. I'm not sure if he played any. You know, Pablo, I'm sure if anyone could navigate it, Pablo could, but that matchup would be tougher. And I think outside of that, I mean, you know, decks like Kano, Icelander, they can combat Oldhim in ways. It's just whether those are viable in this format.
Kano's pretty decent against this Oldhim list, right? Because it is so it's so much more aggressive than some of the previous lists that we had seen. I don't know if that works in Kano's favor or not. I guess it just depends on the draw, because too much. I wonder about the validity of Kano off the back of a Road to Nationals win and such a high representation of Antwerp. I think one of the highest calling representations we've ever seen in Kano. Do you think that that's...
Only 2 made day 2 though, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's par for the course. See, I mean, we talk shit about Illusionists having a bad conversion rate. Let's talk about just Kano across the board. Usually kind of bad.
No.
Well,
no. Well, I mean, not at Pro Tours, I guess. I was going to say at Worlds as well. I'm sure it had Worlds had a really good conversion rate as well.
Worlds and Pro Tours has been okay. I mean, maybe after Pro Tour Baltimore, it has less of the high conversion rate. But yeah. Sorry, I'm immediately grabbing onto the Kano statement and just running with it.
Of course.
What do you think about the validity of that pick in this format?
So I guess I'm going to expand a little bit just beyond Kano rather than just talking about specifically Kano. And I'm going to talk about these kind of fringe decks or people's, for lack of a better term, pet decks or decks that they're really familiar with. We can use Kano as an example.
Decks.
Just to keep them happy. Yeah. They're really viable right now because you can pick a lane. Like I think as the card pool grows, at least for a lot of the heroes, you can pick a lane and you can target what the meta's doing because there's Oldhim, there's Droma, and there's Lexi, and I think you can build decks that can target 2 of those 3 pretty easily in almost every hero. To a degree, maybe you're not going to be like 70% favored, but you can give yourself to maybe having really good plans and feel maybe somewhat favored in these matchups. I guess the difficulty is what kind of Oldhim are you expecting? Are you expecting something like Michael Feng won the PT with, which has this little bit of ice, has proactiveness? Are you expecting what Pablo played, which is, really targeting Lexi, I would say? Are you expecting some sort of hybrid? Are you expecting people to go back to full on ice and start to really target Lexi and the mirror, but maybe give up Dromai? So that's an interesting piece. But anyway, what I'm saying, something like Kano, I mean, we saw Reiner top 8 in Antwerp. We've seen, Fies win. We've seen Azuri's win over this past 2 weeks. So, I think basically what I'm saying is that I think you can kind of craft these decks regardless of what quote unquote tier they sit in people's eyes to at least have good plans into a couple of the decks in the meta. And Road to Nationals, they're going to be somewhat open, although Lexi, Oldhim, Dromai clearly seem to be the top 3 favorite decks right now for people to pick up and play. It doesn't, in a Road to Nationals, it's a lot more open than, say, a invite-only event like a Pro Tour. Like, people are going to play a higher spread. You're going to have Azuris there. You're going to have Katsus. You're going to have Fires. You're going to have people on their Dorinthias. There's like 2 Riptides at my event on Saturday, I think. People are going to play these heroes. Yeah,
I think my filter for picking a deck for Road to Nationals, the first thing I would consider would probably be Lexi, even though you say Oldhim is the best deck and it's having success. I just believe that Lexi would probably be more represented, at least in my region, for sure. Definitely in my region. So I'd be thinking about Lexi first. And that's really what pulls me off, like the Icelander, a deck that I have a bit of an affinity for, is I don't want to play.
Yeah, matchup is awful.
It was bad before, and now it's worse. So that's what's crazy is I think, I don't know if Icelander won a few or if I saw some people doing well on Twitter with it, but I know Icelander definitely put up at least some performances, and that really surprises me in the context of a Lexi dominated meta.
But that's the thing, right? Like, these events are open. Like, you're right. Like, Lexi, anecdotally, seems like it's been the most represented deck at Road to Nationals so far, and it's not surprising, right? It's an aggro deck. It is not as linear as previous aggro decks. It's harder to play, but it has so much damage. It has these amazing sort of like ways to play and play patterns. It's really enjoyable for a lot of people. I mean, it's very different. Ranges have always had this kind of thing about them, popularity, but maybe not been as popular. So, as good. But now we, Codex and this kind of Lexi deck and all these other pieces that it's been given, people are going to play it, and rightly so. But in saying that, doesn't mean what's it realistically going to be at an event. What was it at the Pro Tour? It was 20% of the field or something. It's not going to be, it's probably going to be more like 10% of the field at your Road to Nationals. You can avoid the Lexis and make a top 4. It might be harder to win an event. You probably have to play Lexi at some point, but so I can see why people are choosing certain decks and finding success as well.
Yeah, I think that maybe in general, let me know if you think this is wrong. In general, the meta representation at a Pro Tour should be more narrow than a meta representation at something like a Road to Nationals.
100%, like significantly. And I would say like calling would be a calling would be similar, right? Like it would be similarly distributed very, very wide, especially on day one.
Okay. Anything else you want to talk about? You want to jump into the calling Antwerp?
I mean, we can. I would love to see some conversion data on Dromai. Yeah, that's what I mean. We can talk about it in Antwerp. Its conversion was not particularly great. I guess the other kind of like picks of just talking road to nationals, if people are looking for maybe something outside of the. First of all, if you are familiar with aggressive sort of linear decks or Ranger, pick up and play Lexi. It is so good. If you're looking for a place to start, I think I liked Gabe's list from the top 8. I'm sure they'll be out soon. The other list, if those lists aren't out yet, from Antwerp, is if you go back to Max, his Pro Tour top 8 list from Germany. I thought his list was really good, particularly positioned quite well for the mirror. So I can recommend that. Been using it in my testing. Oldhim's a great choice. If you're familiar with Dromai, I would only be picking up Dromai if you're really familiar with it, or maybe you want to go and pick up Ian's amazing guide. Honestly, no, this is not
tell the story.
Yeah, this is not a plug for just like the Patreon, but this is actually outrageous. So, good friend of the show, Editor Dave. We were playing some matches. He's going to Road to Nationals this week. He's like, he can't play Nationals because he's on a personal trip. So he's like, maybe I'll just play something I haven't played before. He's like, maybe I'll play Dromai. And I was like, I have Ian's provided this great guide for us. Like, check it out. Here's the deck list. I kid you not. First time this guy picks up Dromai, goes, wow, this deck guide's amazing. Like, it's so super detailed. He goes, okay, this is how I play it. Immediately beats me on Oldhim. I'm just like, what is going on? So I think that's a good place to start. And then I would say I think Azalea is actually still a really good pick, especially if you're expecting a lot of a high density of Lexies. To show up. Then I think Azalea is a great pick, and Azuri if you've got familiarity with the deck also. We can talk about Antwerp though.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the top decks on day one. I don't have the total number, but I'm not going to count it up because I have individuals. So number 1 played deck, Lexi, 133 players. Second most played deck, Dromai, and we're going to dig into that. At 91 players, Oldhim 63, Katsu 40, Azalea 40, Dash 39, Briar 37, Azuri 36, Bravo 35. I mean, this just keeps going down the line. There's so many at this sort of number 4 deck. They're all basically neck and neck. This Azalea, Dash, Briar, Azuri, Bravo, Viserai, and Fi's the first one. Fi's the first one to trail behind. I mean, this looks like what you would expect. I think more Dromai than I would expect, but that makes sense after coming off the back of the Pro Tour. Dromai had some very good results. People have gone up on the deck since then. Oldhim only at 63. Definitely surprising. Hayden, for you, what stands out most about this data?
I think that's a bit more Briar than I expected, but Europeans have had an affinity for Briar. I think we saw it in Lille in particular, and have kind of seen it. I do think Briar is, I talked about it being a deck that I would have taken to the Pro Tour. That's a lot of Azuri as well, 36. Viserai has really seen a bump. I think, Zach Barnes done some wonders for Viserai there with Royal Viserai and taking it to a calling top 8. Katsu at 40, and along with Azalea is maybe not surprising given what we know about the European.
Yes.
A lot of the Polish taking it.
Half the team, I think, took it to Pro Tour Baltimore.
Yep. The one that's maybe surprising me is where you get the steep drop off with Fire at 22. I actually expect to see a bit more Fire this weekend in Antwerp. We'd been talking about in our circles as maybe a good pickup for the upcoming weekend. We'd seen these Kadachi Fires return. Potentially just a way to. I know people are playing Breaking Point in the deck, just ways to attack Lexi, but also ways to potentially attack Oldhim, and traditionally just a very good matchup into Dromai. So those are probably the ones that stand out. I'm not surprised about that amount of Lexi makes perfect amount of sense. I'm actually not that surprised about the amount of Oldhim as well. I think because of at the Pro Tour as well, just the popularity of Dromai, and just I think a lot of people just would default to Lexi, and I don't blame them.
I mean, it surprises me because Oldhim won the Pro Tour. It's funny, the rhetoric and narrative post Pro Tour is still. I think that on aggregate, it's still that Lexi was just the best, most premier deck, and a lot of other decks are reacting to that. I think that's what a lot of people came away with after so many Lexi made the top 8. At the end of the day, Oldhim won the tournament. I think Oldhim won the tournament pretty convincingly as well. And I think if we looked back to past Pro Tours, if there was competitive events after them, we'd see the deck that won the previous Pro Tour Worlds be more representative. So Oldhim is 63 does surprise me because I agree with you. I think that our assessment prior to the Pro Tour that Oldhim was the meta-defining deck and the sort of most powerful, well-rounded deck in the format ended up being correct.
Yeah, I mean, top four PT was one Lexi. Only one Lexi made it through to the semifinals, and that was from a Lexi mirror, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's I guess it's kind of almost like inverse. We saw an Oldhim finish first, 2 Dramais in the top 4, and then Lexi, one copy in the top 4. But yeah, I mean, Lexi is really, really good. It's enjoyable to play. People enjoy playing it. The other consideration I think people have for a deck like Oldhim at an event like a calling is like, depending on what kind of list you're playing, are you actually worried about the clock? Maybe people don't have the experience in the Lexi matchup. We saw a 2-hour Dramai semifinal at the Pro Tour. Are people actually, were they legitimately just worried about playing the clock a little bit? I mean, my experience has been it's not an issue, but, maybe people didn't want to pick up and play Dramai for that reason. Oldhim for that reason, and people went to decks like Lexi. The other one that's really surprising is Dash at 39. My personal take is
the Pro Tour calling, the biggest calling ever. Dash won the calling.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, that's the thing is these things happen in Flesh and Blood all the time. There's decks that you and I will think are borderline unplayable to format. It will have this amazing performance, and the community at the same time, like, they won't really react to it. And I guess we don't as well. We didn't give a lot of credence to Dash winning the biggest calling ever.
We talked about it.
But we're not going like, is Dash the best deck? Maybe were we wrong? We never considered that. And I think that this sort of, the results in the calling Antwerp reaffirm our stance, but there's a legitimate conversation to be had that the premier event, I think, for this constructed format was that calling instead of the Pro Tour. I think that was the better source of data you could have, and Dash won the entire thing.
Yep. No, look, I mean, shout out to Merrick, right? Like, amazing run, and my personal take is that, and from testing, is that Dash is in a really bad spot right now. But you know what? Dash can win any game. That's the thing. Like, Dash can win any game. I mean, we saw, shout out to Chandler Toe, we saw Reiner win at the World's Calling as well.
Speaking of
these
a
callings,
bad spot.
Yeah, it's interesting. These callings attached to large, to Pro Tours and Worlds, these pro events, getting interesting. The last 2 have been won by 2 decks that people didn't necessarily have on their radar, right? That people think are pretty poor. But also, I mean, look, hey, Reiner top tier in Antwerp as well.
Prism won the calling in Pro Tour Lille. I think Prism was sort of a dog deck in that format. Not like dog isn't bad, but it was an underdog.
It was an awkward spot for it because of how much aggro. Yeah.
US Nationals, Cheerios Briar meta, Michael Hamilton wins the calling on Oldhim, which people now is like, oh, obviously. No, back then that was groundbreaking. But Hayden, I just want to bring this up. So talking about decks that are in a bad spot, let's talk about the top 8 here. So we have Oldhim, 2 Oldhims, 3 Lexis, 1 Azuri, 1 Azalea, and 1 Reinar. And there was only 8 Reinars that showed up to it.
Yeah. First of all, what an awesome top 8. Really good spread, I think. Cool to see Azuri up there. It was great to watch Sebastian's matches as well. I managed to catch the final, and I think there was one other camera game that he got that I saw as well. Lexi obviously just proving how good Lexi is. That semifinals match between George and Pablo was, it could have been really close. It could have gone differently, I think, and Pablo navigated it well. Gabe in there. Apparently his game was very close into Azuri as well. Apparently got a little bit betrayed by 3 of a kind draw in the dying throws of the game. And yeah, I mean, Reiner, obviously, I know there was I think Reiner beat one of Pablo's teammates in a win-in. Azalea, like I say, still a good pick. So I think a really cool and diverse top 8. But you'll notice, I mean, no Dromai, no Katsu, no Dash.
Yeah, this Katsu deck that the Polish team was running at the Pro Tour, it wasn't a Katsu deck with 9 flick flags. It was a Katsu deck with 3 red flick flags, and it was a very aggressive Katsu deck. I'm not sure if anybody's been running a different build, running more of a mid-range or a more defensive build, really exploiting something like flick flag. But yeah, Dramai. There's many different variations of Dramai running around, especially off the back of the Pro Tour. 91 show up, 0 make it to the top 8. Is Dramai a bad deck, Hayden?
Well, before I answer that, let's look at the day 2 conversion. So, you go through. I think there's about 600 odd players, roughly at at this event, 600, I think it's 640 odd, with 133 going through to sorry, no, not 133. How many are on day 2? I don't know the day 2 number, but I've got the total, like what converted. So Lexi was 20% of the field on day 2, and then on day 1 it was 27% of the field on day 2. So really good conversion from Lexi there. Oldhim had the second best conversion, 25% of the field on day 2, and then Dromai really dropped off. So it was like 23 Lexi, 21 Oldhim, 7 Dromai on day 2. Really sort of fell away. Some of the better conversion came from Fi and Rhinar. They had two apiece. It was 1 Kano, 1 Dash, 5 Azalea, 6 Katsu, 6 Bravo. So the I guess the percentage representation didn't change too much for most decks, but there was a couple of outliers, and Oldhim and Dromai, for different reasons, are the ones that really stand out there. I've been putting off the question. Is Dromai a bad deck? No, I don't think it is. I think Dromai is really hard to play. I think Dromai is not a deck you just pick up and play. Even if you have reps with it, it's still super difficult. It's not an autopilot deck. You're always making decisions. Like if I take the Oldhim versus Dromai matchup, for example, I think as Oldhim, there's a couple of different plans you can employ depending on what sort of list you're playing, but you're kind of playing the same way through most of the game. The Dromai is the one who has to make all the decisions. It's the same with Lexi, to be honest. The Lexi's like, okay, where's my Endless Arrow? Here's my plan for dragons. Dromai's got to adapt and kind of play to, depending on how the Lexi draws and what the game sort of unfolds like. So, your Ash management, you've got to, like, first of all, you've got to have the right list, I think. I mean, most of the lists are pretty solidified at this point. There's kind of 2 really key versions. But yeah, it's not easy to play. I don't think it's a bad deck. I think, I checked out this guide from Ian as well. I think he has it nailed down how to play these matchups. But even he says in the interview you did with him, it's not easy to play, and you are consistently adapting and trying to navigate the game state. So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just love asking questions like that because put you in the spot. I mean, if you took it on data only,
it's a bad deck.
Yeah, it's a bad deck. And even so, if you took it on data only pre-Pro Tour, you would have entered the Pro Tour saying it's a bad deck. It's performing so bad on the West Coast, like abysmal. But the data it doesn't tell the entire story. We see 2 Jeremiahs in top 8. Jeremiah almost wins the entire tournament. So it's a legit deck. I just agree with you. It certainly has to be hard to play. There's something that's got to be missing for the vast majority of people on this deck that just seem to never have success with it.
Yeah, Dromai, my takeaway is Dromai is really powerful. I think we continue to see Dromai be really prevalent in this format. I think Oldhim Living Legend is a really good thing for Dromai, just as we kind of wrap this up. We didn't see any in the top 8, but from what I understand, just looking at the standings, there was Dromai's hanging around the top tables. It just, Lexi and Oldhim really dominated kind of day 2, and then some other players with some really good plans probably into those heroes, something like Rhinar, something like Azuri, who had a good plan, really good plan into Lexi, were prepared, and they had a good day too. So not surprised.
I can't wait for the day when you finally put your money where your mouth is and take Rhinar to a high level event. You're supposed to be the Rhinar guy, and everybody else is winning callings, top 8 callings with Rhinar, and you're just playing these meta decks, dude.
Well, I need help from these players because I just can't do it. Hey, it's not like I haven't tried, I took Rhinar to a calling top 4 in Blitz.
All right, Oldhim equals gone him. Your sort of phrase of the episode here. What are your thoughts and feelings? Your first gut reaction? Someone who just had a lot of success with Oldhim. Are you gonna miss your boy?
A lot of success. Look, this is my first time really picking up and playing Oldhim, and I think I started with Guardian. So Bravo was the first deck I built up for Classic Constructed. I enjoyed that play style. I think it got old very quickly for me, and I kind of haven't played much Guardians in a long time outside of testing and being Gauntlet decks, etc. It's been fun to go back to playing some Oldhim. It's really diverse the way you can build it. The games never look too much the same, especially mirror matches, which I think are really interesting. I don't know what it's going to look like for the format. I think Dust to Dawn is really going to really depend on what Dust to Dawn looks like. I think Oldhim leaving is a great thing for the other 2 quote unquote top decks in the format, in the form of Lexi and Dromai that we just spoke about. So what does that mean? Does that mean that Lexi is just going to be too dominant? Does that mean that, Dromai can really just focus on beating Lexi, and then everyone has to, maybe aggro returns, right?
Yeah.
Maybe we see the return of these really proactive aggro decks. We saw it in Lille because Prism kept down Oldhim, that these aggro decks flourished. Is that the kind of meta we're going to go into? I really don't know, but I'm interested to see. Dust Till Dawn is going to have, I think, the opportunity to have a really, really massive impact. We talked about how big the impact of Outsiders was. Dust Till Dawn has the opportunity to be the biggest impacting set to date because of, I think, it coincides again with a living legend of a really prominent hero.
Yeah, Hayden, you and I were talking about this off air, or what we're going to call this. We were talking about Dust Till Dawn, and I genuinely hope that they just kind of print something a little bit broken again. I just want to feel something so badly.
Just let me feel.
We've gone through a bit of a muted power level. I think post Tails. Yes, post Tails. Icelander, obviously very, very good deck. Don't get me wrong, Fi good deck. Dynasty, low power level. Outsiders is a high power level. I mean, really brought the Rangers into the spotlight, and I think some of those, but it's not crazy, right? We don't have chain.
No, I kind of disagree.
Yeah, I don't know. I think
play your Riptides and your Azuris and your Arachnes and.
I think Azuri looks really good as Oldhim heads out.
Yes, that's the one we didn't talk about. I think Azuri gets a massive buff because honestly, my experience with Azuri has been their Oldhim matchup is just it's so unfun and it's rubbish. So Oldhim leaving, Azuri can absolutely dominate the aggressive decks. It's had to build in a slightly different way to combat Oldhim, but now you just have to care about Dromai and you can build to just take care of aggro decks.
Yeah, I think that Azuri is the biggest stonks for me that go up is definitely
a sleeper.
Yeah, bit of a sleeper. I mean, I just remember seeing Tao Tao's deck when we were watching the Pro Tour and just absolutely dismantle these Lexies. And I was like, okay, well, what is he going to do about Oldhim? He's like, yeah, how about that? I was like, okay. It's a good pick for the tournament, but as Oldhim rotates out, it might be just a good pick overall. Looks really, really good for Azuri.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I would agree with you. I mean, yeah, not much else to say. Dust Till Dawn is fast approaching.
Let's talk about it real quick. Do you think that what power level? I don't know. Give me a flavor, right? Spicy, muted, mild. What kind of flavor do you think the power level of the new Runeblade is going to be, and the power level of the new Light Illusionist? Do you think that they're going to be? You think we're going to feel something?
So you just spoke about kind of where power level in the game has gone, and I've said this multiple times on the pod. I've spoken about it, I feel like, till I've gone red in the face about Monarch and Tales of Aria being these really powerful spike sets that LSS, I think, consciously wanted to reset afterwards, which is move away from Uprising. Yes, still very good heroes, but the power level was different, right? And then as we move through into Dynasty, I mean, again, power level significantly reduced. So I think sort of a change after Everfest would probably be where you point to. And then with Dynasty, people, people focus on Codex. Like Codex, the return on this card is insane. The overall power level of the set is really not that high, right? Like it is a lot more about kind of interesting mechanics and creativity of how you use.
What do you think about like Lace with Blood Rot, Infecting Shot, stuff like that? Do you think that those are just par for the course in terms of power level, or are they slightly pushed?
I mean, so if you go to sort of like looking at a matrix on the card, I guess they defend for 2. They provide you potential 0 for 5, right? What does Snatch do? It's all contextual, I think, in terms of, and you see, Lexies have chosen not to run these cards because they don't fit in the style. Yes, they're good in Azalea, but even Azalea's they don't run 9 of, right? So, the card's good, but is it like significantly pushed comparative to other cards out there? No, I don't think so.
Okay.
What was the question again? What were we talking about? Oh, the flavor of the spiciness. You want to, get that peri peri, that, what do you call it? That Nando's chart out.
Oh.
I mean, I'm not super impressed with what we've seen from the Shadow Runeblade so far, but that's because I'm comparing it to Chain, right? The flail, fine, whatever. The Eloquence token that was, I mean, we should have really should have spoken about some spoilers, some preview cards in the top of the show, but we didn't. But the Eloquence token, this ability to give non-attack actions go again. I heard that Tomes got buyouts yesterday. Tome of Fiendale's got buyouts after people saw Eloquence token. I mean, that's interesting to me. The Shadow Runeblade stuff we've seen so far. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. It's a specialized weapon, a specialization weapon with the flail, which is, interesting. I'm interested to know why that's a specialization. Is that something that Alex is going to go forward with? These kind of, not only is it signature weapons, you get specialized weapons. I hope not. But the Light Illusionist, I mean, we've seen the weapon, which is, you can pay 2 to give you a Herald go again, right?
People love that one on Twitter.
Yeah, people were a bit disappointed, I guess. So I don't know. It obviously looks like they've been really careful to not make this Monarch 2.0, right? Like, they are being really considerate of what the power level is going to be.
Okay. Do you think that the design decision post Tales of Aria to go for a lower, maybe more muted power level is the correct decision? Or do you think that it is beneficial for the game? Not saying beneficial for the meta, beneficial for the game to maybe revisit some of the power level and just craziness that we had in those Tales of Aria and Monarch sets.
It's such a tough one. I mean, I've gone back and forth on this. I've said yes, I've said maybe it's bad. I think overall, yes, it is good because people want to play games of Flesh and Blood, and the kind of overall, the quite overwhelming sort of feedback I think on these last 2 formats has been they have been enjoyable. You can play the decks you want. Games feel like games, and Starvo didn't necessarily feel like that. Prism didn't necessarily feel like that. And while I disagree on some of those points, and I think those heroes were in some ways good for the game, good especially at really high levels of the game, I can understand the kind of overwhelming sort of, I guess, where we need to focus on the game is at the armory level, is at all these sort of like grassroots levels of the game. And I think for that reason, I would like to see them be really careful about the quote unquote craziness and spiciness they go for. But a little bit of it goes a long way and is really interesting. And I think, having things like Kano, having things like these kind of potential sort of like combo decks or decks that can break out, going Rain Razors into 3 of a kind, into this crazy 4 or 5 arrow turn, that is fun. That is cool. It doesn't happen that often. People love to do it. I think having these bits of spike is really interesting in the game. So yeah, just sprinkle a little bit on the top, a little bit of chili on the top, but don't go too hard.
Yeah, I think card gamers just inherently like doing busted stuff. Like,
for sure.
For some, it's weird because I think if you look at it from like a holistic design perspective, it's just, maybe Chain wasn't good for the game, maybe Starvo was just objectively bad for the game, but when all those things are stripped out of the game, it could be nostalgia, but you are left wanting. You're like, please let me banish 8 cards off the top of my deck and play 5 or 6 of them. There's just something about that. The thing about Chain is I didn't feel like there was a single TCG on the market where I could get that same experience, and I loved that. You could probably make the argument that the Flesh and Blood experience you can't get anywhere else because the way the resource system works and how balanced it is. But yeah, I'm with you that I think I would like to see some push cards. I think I want my Scalata derivative back.
Scalata. Yeah, I knew you were going to say it.
It's a meme. So Scalata, I just meme every time Brian posts about something unbanned Scalata. But yeah, I would like to see some of that stuff again. I could be wrong. I think that if we revisit it the second time they do it again and we have the full perspective, we can be like, this is not good for the game. But I would say that nostalgia is creeping in. I'm like, please give me a Scalata, please give me a Chain.
I'd give you a little like Scalata at home. Here's the dichotomy, right? For I guess this discussion is like, you said players like card game players, TCG players like doing busted stuff. You know what they also don't like is
non-games,
playing into busted stuff. Getting nutted by busted stuff. So it's a real catch-22, right? And I think the way that Lexi's been done, or the way that kind of Ranger with some of these cards in this meta feels a bit more appropriate to me. Even something like Kano, that feels a bit more fair. Maybe even Icelander. It's tough. It's a fine line, right? There's always going to be people on either side of it, and you want to try and get the line as close to kind of the middle as possible, right? And that is the challenge.
Well, I'm going to be a good contact right here and say, what do you all think? Let us know in the comments below. What do you think that LSS should do in something like Dusk Till Dawn? Should we bring back, let's say 75% Chain power level, 75% Prism power level? Is that what you would like to see in Dusk Till Dawn? Or do you want to see more of an outsiders power level, which I think was a good set. I think it was a powerful set, brought some heroes into the limelight, but nothing like Tales of Aria and nothing like Monarch. Let us know.
Yeah. And is Phantom Banshee busted?
Yeah.
No.
All right. Well, that's it for this week. If you are listening to this on podcast platforms, there's a video version on YouTube at youtube.com/Arsenal Pass. Hayden and I are both on Twitter. I'm at Brennan APG. Hayden is at Fiend_Dale. I was tongue twisted that one. And of course, if you're interested, check out the Arsenal Pass Patreon. Tons of new content just came in. Brody's Lexi deck tech and Ian TCG's big Jeremiah deck tech. And like we talked about, Oldhim moving out, Jeremiah stonks, they go up. Anyway, thank you all for listening. We'll see you next week.
See ya.